Is Star Wars done for? Is it over? Because that's a claim I keep on seeing, looking at some of the big names on YouTube. Nerdrotic seems to think The Acolyte has finished Star Wars off, Snarky J seems to think it's done, and this line definitely wasn't written in by the editor, who just wanted an excuse to show a picture of Snarky J again. The Critical Drinker seems to think Star Wars shuffled off this mortal coil a year ago, during The Mandalorian Season 3, and then who knows? Maybe it came back to life again, just to bite the dust again during The Acolyte. Maybe being a bit bombastic is what you have to do for views on YouTube. Maybe I should follow their lead, seeing as they're both doing a hell of a lot better than I am on here. Is that what you want, audience? Should I be more bombastic? Is that what you people want? So is it done for? I'd say no. There's a lot to agree with in their videos, but it depends on what you mean by done for. Does done for mean Disney are going to stop making Star Wars? Because I'd say that's highly unlikely. Can it ever return to form? I'd say it's definitely possible. Is it likely to happen soon, if ever, in light of the quality of The Acolyte? Oh, hell no. But hope springs eternal. Some people are happy to declare Star Wars done. Some of them multiple times it seems, whereas others flat out refuse to see the faults, even when they're pointed out to them. I also politely disagree with the Critical Drinker, because I don't think I'm done with The Acolyte. Episode 3 with the witches made me laugh so much, and if they're going to burn Star Wars down, like the Stone Fortress, I'm going to at least toast marshmallows and try to have some fun with it. And it seems he changed his mind anyway, because he said he was done after episode 3, and then just carried on watching it. At one point the drinker says,
"How did they manage to squander the seemingly inexhaustible goodwill and enthusiasm of the biggest fan base in cinema history? Well, just like it takes more than a single hit to sink a battleship, so it requires more than just one bad decision to bring down a franchise as large as Star Wars."
And on that point, I'm going to respectfully disagree again with the drinker. I think the whole problem with Star Wars, and where it all went off the rails, comes down to one single decision. And that decision was, well, it's this. In short, the decision was to update Star Wars for a modern audience and try to turn it into a girl brand. It's like they had a train at a junction and they chose the rail line that would sink the train clear into a bog instead of the line that went to enormous amounts of free money. I don't understand the thinking at Disney at all. I'm not even sure any is going on. They found themselves in a position where they had some of the most beloved and popular franchises in the world in their ownership. IPs that were making them billions. In 2018, they had Infinity War, a film that grossed over $2 billion. The Force Awakens in 2015 grossed over $2 billion. So what do you do when you have the most profitable franchises in history? Quick, you changed them! Wait, what? You did what now? Don't change them! Do more of the same! They just brought in $2 billion, what are you thinking? Why is anyone buying Disney stock again? It wasn't broken until you tried to fix it. You're telling me that nobody, not one person on the board said, "Hey wait, you know that thing we did that brought in $2 billion? Should we do that again?" Nah, silly idea, drop it. Nor do I think it's a good idea, as Bob Iger, the president of Disney, seems to view these franchises as, quote, an IP to be mined. That kind of lets slip how little they care about the franchises that they own, other than as a thing to exploit to make money. It should maybe be instead seen as a tree to be looked after and nourished, and if treated right, will give you lovely fruit. George Lucas is quoted as saying, "Just like Star Wars was designed for 12-year-old boys, another project of his, Strange Magic, was designed for 12-year-old girls. Star Wars has always been a bit of a boy brand at its core." Take this survey from Statista, and the number of female Star Wars fans there is actually higher than I would have anticipated, if anything. But that's from 2019, the year The Rise of Skywalker was released, when they were well into trying to turn Star Wars into a girl brand already. So it's unclear at that point how many female fans they'd gained and how many male ones had left. And why is it even a problem if Star Wars appealed more to men than women? Bridgerton appeals more to women than it does to men. The audience is supposed to be 76% female, and yet I've never heard people talk about the pressing need to change Bridgerton in order to cater more to a male audience. Even if you tried, I'm not sure it'd work. If you put loads of action scenes into Bridgerton to try and get a male audience, The problem is that Bridgerton already has a reputation of being a girl show. You may alienate the audience you had and find that the men still don't give it a chance. It should be kind of obvious that it would be this way. For a start, sci-fi leans to having a heavily male audience. Star Wars is also about war and conflict, which skews heavily male as well. And they already had women watching Star Wars, and also a lot of men. But if you change it to try and get the Gossip Girl viewers on board, why would you assume either the women who liked what it was, or the men are going to stick around for what you changed it into? The audience of Star Wars were mostly men, not because women were ever gate-kept out of it. Women have always been welcome. No one was guarding the doors at theatres keeping women out. People in ticket booths were not stopping women and saying, "Sorry, we can't let you in, you're clearly a girl." Guys, I think, tend to be happy for women to be there and be interested in the same things that they are. It's just most women aren't, and that's fine. A lot of women prefer cosplay as a hobby, and I'm fine with it. Here are figures from the UK in 2018 for films that skewed either heavily male or heavily female in their viewership. Note for men, it's a lot of action movies. Sicario 2's viewership was 84% male. For women, they had 50 Shades Freed, whose audience was 79% female, which I understand was a naughty romance with women getting tied up a lot, and the film The Book Club, whose audience was again 80% female, and was about 4 lifelong friends who had their lives forever changed after reading 50 Shades of Grey in their monthly book club. In short, you're very naughty girls. Calm down or I'll sick Fred on you.
Those look good. A big salty clam would sure go great with this heat. You want one, Daff?
No.
And Fred, as I've already established in another video, is an animal, whereas Daphne, it appears, has very different interests. Well, at least she did, until Mindy Kaling got her hands on her. Anyway, I remember walking through a city in the UK, and in this city was a Warhammer store, you know, with the Space Marines and all that. And in all the many times I walked past that store with its very large windows, I don't think I ever once saw a woman in there. There was once again nobody on the door stopping women coming in. There were a conspicuous absence of "no women allowed" signs, or "stop, this is a jug-free zone." The women, however, were normally several stores away, in a shop that I think was called Bangles. They sold bangles and scrunchies and hair clips. I don't know why women need so many of them, but it seems that they really do. Women seem to have a never-ending and inexhaustible hunger for scrunchies. I don't recall seeing a man in there once. Okay, maybe one goth one time, whose gender was frankly ambiguous. Sometimes there would be a boyfriend, left standing forlorn outside Bangles, looking sad and bored, and the guys in the Warhammer store probably would have loved a woman to come in. Some of them would have been so happy they may have even showered. And whatever anyone tells you, no, just because someone likes sci-fi, it doesn't mean they're gay.
Because nerds are gay.
Well, some nerds are very not gay and are very threatened by gay
Well, that's
stuff.
true. But
Yeah.
in my world, nerds are gay.
Okay.
What a weird thing to say that was. I suppose sci-fi has tended to be quite welcoming to everyone, but that doesn't mean it's gay. Just a thought. How many of Disney's writers are gay?
I would say a relatively large percentage of our top writer creators happen to be gay. And a lot of
Just by happenstance.
I mean, like, just like if you say whatever, I don't know, whatever 10 or 15% of the population is gay, I would guess that 30 to 35% of our top writers happen to be, gay. And so I think a lot of them lean into trans stories more than the average straight writer would.
30% of Disney's senior writers shouldn't be gay, seeing as LGBT people are about 7% of the entire US population, and some of them may only be pretending in order to get work. That's hardly representation, is it? That's clearly over-representation. So what could Disney have done? Well, they could have kept Star Wars essentially like it was when they bought it, because it was a money printer. And if you really want to try and bring more young women into liking Star Wars, good luck with that. Most of them will probably be off watching the carriage scene from Bridgerton on loop. But if you try to broaden the audience, don't just try and turn it into a girl brand overnight. Don't go all in on what's clearly a very risky proposition and assume people are just going to love Rey. That may lose the massive audience you bought the IP for in the first place. It cost you $4 billion. You could have had The Force Awakens with, radical idea I know, Luke Skywalker actually doing things in it. You could have had him sharing screen time with Leia and Han, maybe Lando. Too late now. Carrie Fisher's passed on and you blew it. You had all three main actors of the original films back and you blew it. Disney couldn't even treat them with respect. Take the movie The Last Jedi. How do you have Luke learn about the passing of one of his oldest friends off camera? That could have and should have been a powerful character moment. Instead it was nothing. Also maybe write an original story instead of a crude remake of A New Hope. And to that you may say, well, they tried writing something new with The Last Jedi and that was a disaster. But that's a false dichotomy. It's not a choice of either copy other films or make something full of plot holes. The option does exist to write something that's both new and good, and that's the option I think they should have taken. Maybe they could have made a story that riffs off of the existing films, and in that story you can put in lots of what you try to make interesting female characters, and you hope one or more of them strikes a chord with the audience. Once you have a character like that, you can try to spin her off. Give her own female-led series or movie, maybe something more pitched at young women. Just off the top of my head, how about something like a Harry Potter-like Jedi Academy with lots of interpersonal relationships? That way you hopefully still have all of the original audience because you're still making movies essentially like the product that they liked, and you also may have a new audience watching the new IP. And once you have two or more successful IPs in the Star Wars universe, you're moving towards a cinematic universe. You can start doing big crossover movies with the stars of all of the IPs together and hopefully get all of the audiences in the cinema at the same time. This should not be a revelation. It's essentially what Disney did in making the MCU so massive in the first place and making some of the highest grossing movies in film history. And the thing that Disney did that seems to have damaged Star Wars so badly is pretty much what they've done to the MCU as well. Try to update it for a modern audience that doesn't seem to really exist while losing the audience that they had. We've reached a situation now that would not have seemed possible just a few short years ago. Marvel movies losing money, Star Wars movies losing money, and Disney show no signs of having learned anything. Oh no, if the audience don't want to pay to see Disney movies, clearly it's the audience that must be wrong.
Am I so out of touch? No, it's the children who are wrong.
A big juicy clam would sure go great with this heat.
Of course!